Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our Healthy Living event, Tools and Tech for Managing Your Diabetes. Now, whether you have type 1, type 2, or maybe a doctor has told you that you're pre-diabetic, their technology is advancing in so many ways to help you better manage your conditions and live a healthy and happy life. Now, if you have questions during these presentations, you can go on Facebook or YouTube, submit your questions, and we'll get them answered right here live while we're on the air with you. So that should help you right away get to the answers that you need and that you're looking for. We have two experts that are going to talk to us about some of the technology for diabetes and also how your diet can help. And we're going to start off with Jen Walrath. Now, Jen received her Bachelor's of Science in Nursing at U of M Flint and worked at the University of Michigan Health System. She works now as a diabetes educator at the Hurley Diabetes Center and works with people who have type 1 and type 2 diabetes, from no medicine to insulin pumps and CGMs. Jen works with two amazing dietitians, and together they help people understand how diabetes affects them and what they can do to stay healthy and improve their health. Jen has 3 young boys and 2 big dogs, and she loves Northern Michigan. Let's hear from Jen.
Thanks, Peggy. It's really good to be here with you guys. I'm actually very excited to talk with you today about diabetes and technology. So technology has come so far, it would be, I don't know, unusual to think that diabetes and technology would not have also advanced a lot in the last little while. So I'm excited to teach you guys a little bit about that and show you where we stand. One thing is that uncontrolled blood sugar, we know that it affects the entire body, and that's really the problem here. So diabetes itself is not what causes the damage. I'm mincing my words when I say this, but it's not diabetes per se, it is the uncontrolled high blood sugar. So if we can use whatever tools we have at our disposal to help control that blood sugar and keep it in a healthy range, then we're not really looking at having to deal with the risk the same way of the damage that can happen from the high blood sugar over time. So things like, we know people who've had damage to their kidneys or their eyes or their feet and amputations, a heart attack, the list goes on and on. Really, high blood sugar affects the entire body. And by watching our blood sugars and knowing kind of where we stand, that's how we can understand what our risk is and how to change our risk if they're outside of those target areas. When we look at the body, initially the high blood sugar, it's affecting the circulation. It's affecting the inside lining of the blood vessels, and it's damaging those. Inside lining of the blood vessels become damaged. They become more susceptible to being more rigid, so they're not stretchy like they should be, and they clog a lot easier. Blood vessels that are not flowing appropriately then are not going to be able to feed the nerves very well, and nerves need good flow of oxygen. They need good flow of nutrients to work well. So when we think about things that can happen from uncontrolled sugar over time, that also includes diabetic neuropathy. Again, we're looking at controlling that blood sugar, and that's how we give people the best chance of living really healthy, happy lives with diabetes. We look at the tools that we have at our disposal. One of the tools that we have is healthy eating. Healthy eating does not mean starving ourselves. It does not mean skipping meals. It means really good, healthy, balanced eating. And it takes some diabetes education or other nutrition education to be able to do that well. There are a lot of amazing dietitians out there within the Hurley system, and even within my area here at the Diabetes Center, we've got amazing dietitians. And if ever you want some help with your eating and your nutrition with your diabetes, this is the place to go. So excited to have anybody who's looking for that here. But eating is not the only thing that affects our diabetes. Eating is a big one, but so is physical activity. A lot of us have limitations to our physical activity, whether it's pain or mobility issues. So it's not just eating and exercise either. It also includes medications. And medications can be pills for diabetes. It can include, obviously, insulin for diabetes. Not everybody needs insulin for their diabetes, but for those who do, insulin is 100% natural. It's a really important hormone that the body makes. Everybody on this earth who is alive has insulin in their body. So insulin's nothing to be feared. And the cool thing about the advancements in technology with diabetes is that we've even been able to advance how we deliver the insulin for people who have diabetes that require it. So that's very, very cool. When we're looking at knowing what your risk is, one of the things that your doctors and your diabetes education team are going to look at is going to be your blood sugars. Blood sugars are extremely important. They're little blips on the roadmap that tell us where your sugars stand and help us analyze a pattern. So that's really, really helpful for us, and it's actually helpful for you too if somebody is there to teach you how to use those numbers and how to read them. Another thing that we look at is your A1C. So if you've got diabetes, you've probably heard about your A1C. And there's target A1Cs, just like there's target blood sugars, where we know that somebody who has their blood sugars and their A1Cs in these general areas, they're not at risk for those kind of bad things that we think about, the chronic complications of the diabetes. So we look at those. There's another thing now called time in range. And this plays into another advancement in diabetes technology, which is the continuous glucose monitors. So continuous glucose monitors are a way for somebody to manage and monitor their blood sugar. Actually, most of them read every 5 minutes. They're getting another reading. Doesn't mean you're looking every 5 minutes, but the monitor itself can give a reading every 5 minutes for most of them. And that gives a person a whole nother way of looking at their blood sugars and kind of knowing where they're going. One of the really cool things about these is that they actually can give you a heads up before you're too high or too low. So if these are calculating that, hey, listen, your sugar's actually not super bad right now, but it's changing fast and you're going to be either too high or too low according to your settings, whatever you've put on there. In the next, say, 30 minutes, it'll give you a warning shot. So the ability for these to be able to rein in and tighten blood sugar controls is actually really, really cool. Again, there's a lot of things to know about them to be able to use the information correctly. So I'm always here to plug diabetes education because I think there's literally nothing else like it out there. Technology is really, really helpful when you know how to use it right. And I think that's really important to know. Obviously, when you check your blood sugars, they can be all over. This is just a quick example of blood sugars that are all over the map, or at least at first glance they are. And we can use these blood sugars and kind of go through them with somebody with a fine-tooth comb. This is really, really, really good information for somebody to have on a diabetes educator standpoint. So from my standpoint, I love looking at numbers like these with people because I can help them get to the bottom of what their diabetes is doing and find those patterns. They're really hard to find unless you know what you're looking for. That being said, though, we have these other tools. So when we're looking at the A1C and the blood sugar numbers, and we're looking at potentially somebody's continuous glucose monitor numbers, which helps us know all of this data, right? It's like looking at gauges in a car. That's how I think about it. So when you're driving a car, if you had no gas gauge and you had no speedometer and no tach, you had no idea where you were at, it's going to be really hard to drive safely and drive well in that car. And that's what all of these things are for us. When somebody's using these technological advances, such as the continuous glucose monitor, it helps seeing the patterns more easily, but it does not necessarily take away the work of diabetes. The work of diabetes is still going to be on the patient, and it's still going to require eating smart and getting whatever exercise you can, and then using the medications that you have at your disposal. Again, that's where we come in to help you put all those things together. The continuous glucose monitors, every single one is different. There's several different manufacturers. They all have their different pluses and minuses. Much like the pumps that are out there, they all have different manufacturers and different pros and cons of those as well. There are, in the continuous glucose monitor realm, we actually have some that are, the ones that the patient has and they replace at home regularly, and they wear them for the long haul. They change them out. Most of them are 10 days, 14 days, and you would change them out regularly throughout the month. The other kind is actually a professional CGM or continuous glucose monitor, and that's the kind that maybe your doctor has, or we have some here, and that we can put those on with the doctor's permission. We need an order again for that, but we can put those on, and for a short-term period of time, say a 10-day stint or 14-day stint, we can gather that information for the doctor on that particular person. And again, that's not something they would use day in, day out in the long run, but it really gives us good insight into what their diabetes might be doing, minute to minute throughout the day for a short period of time. It's very, very helpful that way. So insulin pumps, as I had mentioned, come from a lot of different kinds of manufacturers. The first one on the side here is actually called an Omnipod, is the name of that one. And it's actually a pod that is filled with insulin, and that one somebody would wear, and they would control it with that little controller. It looks like a phone. And they would control it with that to tell it, hey, I'm getting ready to eat. This is how much insulin I need right now. No tubes with this one. This is the only one we have that does not have any tubes that connect the pump itself to the person, because it's all filled in that little pod that they wear. The next one over is another brand called Tandem. So this is the Tandem T-Slim X2. And this one is shown with the Dexcom G6. So the Dexcom is actually the continuous glucose monitor that somebody would wear to read their blood sugars or their sensor glucose. And then the pump itself houses the insulin, and it does take a tube to transmit that insulin from the pump to the person. So that's a tubed one. The one next to it on the far right here is also another one. This is by a brand called Medtronic. And Medtronic is also a tubed pump. It's shown here with their sensor is the small little white shell that you see off to the side right there. And that's the Medtronic sensor that communicates with theirs. And then at the bottom here, this is one we don't see as often, but it's called the Vigo. And the Vigo is another patch style pump. This one does not have a separate controller. This is one that you would fill with the insulin, and then it's just got a little button on the side that you would kind of click it to deliver the insulin in certain increments as you need it for your food, or if your blood sugar tends to be running high at that moment. So they're all very, very different. Picking an insulin pump is really, really individualized. You really got to know what the pros and the cons, or the pluses and the minuses, or what the different features are of each one before you really can make a great choice on which one of those is going to be the best fit for you. It depends on what you're looking for, and they're all very different. So we would definitely, help somebody to make those kind of decisions. There's also the InPen, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention this as we're talking about diabetes and technology. So the InPen is an insulin pen, but it's much more technologically advanced than any of the insulin pens you have seen so far. So this one actually Bluetooth connects to your phone via an app, and this one will control, it has calculations that the doctor would put the settings in, and it will calculate, much like an insulin pump does, how much insulin a person needs for their blood sugar and how much food they're about to eat. It also communicates with that Dexcom G6 CGM, continuous glucose monitor at this point in time. You can also just poke your finger and put in what your sugar is at the moment. So this one can be as advanced or low key as somebody is looking for them, but a very cool tool. It actually monitors insulin temperature, then will give a warning if somebody's insulin is getting too hot or too cold, which I just think is a very cool feature, because if insulin gets too hot or too cold, it actually weakens the insulin. And so this actually monitors that as well, and expiration times. It's very, very cool little piece, and I just definitely didn't want to forget to mention that one. A lot of work goes into diabetes management, and all of these technological advances, they are really cool. They make a big difference for a lot of people, but it does take knowing how they work. It does take understanding how your diabetes works for these to really be something that you can utilize safely and effectively and get the results that you're looking for. It would be really unfortunate. I mean, it does happen that somebody gets one of these and they didn't really know what they were in for. And unfortunately, they weren't prepped appropriately and they weren't taught how to use them correctly. And they end up deciding not to use them at all. And they sit in a drawer. And that's like the worst thing that would happen for somebody. We don't want that to happen. So I encourage you, before you go down the road of trying to get any of these devices, I really advocate for diabetes education. I think it is, it's just, there's nothing like it out there. We love working in conjunction with your primary care doctor, with your endocrinologist, if you have an endocrinologist, to help you get the best diabetes care that you can and help you understand your diabetes in a way that you likely didn't before. So this is Diabetes and Technology. My name is Jen, and I'm really grateful that you watched today.
Okay, Jen, so we do have some questions coming in. The first one, is the pump better than injections?
It's not actually better than injections. The pump allows people to sometimes tweak their insulin doses in a different way. It's a different way of managing their diabetes and of giving themselves the insulin, but it's not actually better. There's a lot to know about it. As we kind of already discussed, there are a lot of details to know and some safety things to know about it. So one's really not better than the other one, but it definitely can be a really helpful tool for a lot of people.
So I think this is probably, a question that a lot of people might be thinking in their head, because technology scares people, even though, we're so used to it now, it still does worry people. So if people get a pump, how are they going to know how to use it?
That's a great question. So the actual manufacturers have specific trainers for their pumps, and they're amazing. They really help people to know the ins and outs and the button pushing and the intricacies of using that pump from like a technological standpoint. On the flip side of that same coin, though, there's a lot that goes into managing diabetes that is not the same as the button pushing on a pump, for example. So really, when they get their pump training from the actual manufacturer's trainer in that specific instance, then we would be there as a diabetes educator to help them learn how to use that pump effectively and all the not button pushing things that'll help them get the most out of that pump and to be safe and to stay really healthy.
So if someone's not sure if they want a pump, do they wait until they've completely made up their decision and then contact you, or do they contact you and have you help them figure it out?
Yeah, absolutely not. Diabetes education is there for anybody with diabetes. It's really quite well covered by like insurance companies and everything too. Diabetes education is helpful for anybody like anywhere on their journey for managing their diabetes. So if somebody just found out they have diabetes, if they're still totally overwhelmed with the fact that they've been told that they have diabetes, if they've had it for 20 plus years and have never had education, or if they had education years ago, a lot has changed. So basically anybody with diabetes will benefit from diabetes education, and we individualize everything. So not everybody gets the same stock education. Everything is tweaked and individualized to the person. So we really want to know what that person wants, what they're looking for. Are they just looking for a general overview? We go over nutrition and medications and checking their sugar and like every single facet of diabetes management.
So that goes right into the next question. If you're not looking for a pump, is it still going to be beneficial to come to the diabetes center, and how can you help somebody that's not thinking they want a pump?
Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing wrong with more education and with more knowledge. Statistically speaking, it's actually a really low proportion of people with diabetes nationwide who actually get formal diabetes education. And diabetes education is shown even without changing medication, even without changing like a lot of other things about what you're doing for your diabetes. Just getting the education can bring those sugars down, can bring those A1Cs down, which is a lab test for diabetes that helps your doctor know kind of where you stand. So I like numbers and I like more information, but just for anybody who's got diabetes, it's only going to help to have that education. And then down the road, if you become interested in something, or you see an ad for something, you have questions about it, here we are, right there.
Where do we start?
So initially, in order to come for diabetes education, whether it's pump related, continuous glucose monitor related, or not, you just want the education, we do need a doctor's order. So the doctor's order would be the first place to start. I do understand that's going to be available, linked someplace for people to access. You can also call us directly, and we can help get that ball rolling. So our number is 810-262-2310. And so once we get that order, then we can call you and get you scheduled for your visit, for your first visit with us.
Good information. Thanks so much, Jen. It's not all just about the technology. Actually, your diet and exercise and your actual health might be able to get you out of the situation that you're in, or help you control your diabetes a lot better than what you're doing right now. And so that's why we brought in our next expert. Jennifer Traub is a registered dietitian nutritionist with a specialty certification in obesity and weight management. Specialized in weight management and metabolic surgery for the past 11 years, and currently works as a dietitian at the Hurley Bariatric Center. And she's fabulous. She's very easy to work with, and she could really probably help you out a lot in managing your condition. Jennifer?
Hello, my name is Jennifer Traub. I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist at the Hurley Bariatric Center. And today I'm going to be talking to you about weight loss and diabetes. Many people wonder if losing weight will actually help improve their diabetes. Well, let's take a look at what the science says. The DIRECT trial looked at individuals aged 20 to 65, and all individuals were diagnosed with type 2 diabetes within the 6 years prior to the trial beginning. None of the individuals were receiving insulin therapy, and each had a body mass index between 27 and 45. That means that they either had overweight or some degree of obesity. What we found through that trial is that those individuals that lost at least 33 pounds did experience remission of their type 2 diabetes within 1 year. Also, Dr. Osama Hamdi, who is the medical director of the obesity clinical program at the Hurley Diabetes Center, which is a world-renowned center for diabetes research, he says that their research shows that those individuals that lose just 7% of their body weight experience an improvement in insulin sensitivity by 57%. So that means that an individual weighing 200 pounds has to just lose 14 pounds to be able to see an improvement in their blood sugar levels. So as you can see, Losing weight does improve diabetes, and it doesn't take a lot of weight loss to see that improvement. As a registered dietitian nutritionist, a lot of people ask me, how do I lose the weight? I like to always direct people to look at the things that they can control. So namely, that's going to be diet, the foods we choose to put in our bodies, and exercise, which are the movements we make and how often we make them. According to Dr. Hamdi at the Hurley Diabetes Center, when it comes to weight loss and diabetes, reducing carbohydrate intake is the #1 way to actually improve diabetes and lose weight. Carbohydrates stimulate the pancreas to secrete insulin. So if you reduce the carbohydrates, it reduces the stimulation of insulin. When it comes to carbs, you don't want to go too low, but no more than 45% of your calories should come from carbohydrates. So for example, if someone is taking in 1,500 calories a day, they would want to make sure that they're getting no more than 165 grams of carbohydrates in a day. When you choose carbohydrate foods, you want to choose carb foods that are high in nutrition and won't spike your blood sugar. Things like fresh fruits that are high in fiber, like apples, oranges, grapes, berries, pears. Also, low-starch vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower, green beans, carrots, and whole grains and low glycemic starches. Those are things like oatmeal, whole grain pasta, bread, dried peas or beans, sweet potatoes. Those are all excellent choices. You definitely want to avoid things like pastries and white bread. Those are going to make blood sugar levels spike pretty quickly. Now, in terms of the rest of the meal, you definitely want to make sure you're including some protein. About 20 to 30% of your meal should come from a lean protein food. So again, looking at that 1,500 calorie daily intake example, that would mean getting about 90 grams of protein per day. How can you get that in? Well, at breakfast, you might have a couple of eggs, half a cup of cottage cheese, maybe 4 or 5 ounces of a low-sugar Greek yogurt, or a couple tablespoons of peanut butter. At lunch or dinner, try adding 4 ounces of grilled chicken or fish, lean beef like sirloin or round, maybe a couple tablespoons of nut butter as well. Tofu can also fit the bill if someone doesn't like eating a lot of meat. And don't forget to include protein foods with snacks. Lastly, we want to make sure we're including some fat. About 30 to 40% of your daily intake should be from fat. So again, on a 1,500 calorie daily example, that would be about 50 grams of fat per day. And you want to make sure that you're taking in fat from healthy sources, things like avocados, nuts, seeds, fish, olive oil. Fat is very concentrated in calories, so a little bit adds up really quickly. 50 grams of fat looks like maybe a quarter of an avocado, maybe a couple tablespoons of peanut butter, half a tablespoon of olive oil. So as you can see, it doesn't take a lot of fat-rich foods to equal 50 grams. Now let's talk about exercise. For weight loss, the recommendation for exercise is 300 minutes per week. That's 5 hours. And you want to divide those 5 hours up between aerobic activity and strength training. Both of those types of activities actually help promote weight loss and help the body use insulin better. 300 minutes a week can sound overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be. Break it up and have fun with it. Maybe you'll do a 45-minute walk in nature and 15 minutes of using a resistance band between your hands and feet. Maybe you'll do 20 minutes of dancing to music inside your home or a 20-minute online exercise video. Maybe you'll do 10 minutes of alternating between lifting weights or doing squats or lunges. Some people do struggle with actually bearing weight or standing for long periods of time or have difficulty using their lower extremities. For those individuals, I like to direct them to chair exercises. I find most people do have access to a smartphone or a tablet these days, and YouTube has many upper body chair exercise videos available for free. No matter what exercise you want to do or are interested in trying to begin, make sure you talk to your primary care physician before beginning. You want to make sure you're not doing more harm than good. Losing weight is definitely not easy, and there's a lot of factors involved that we can't easily control. Things like hormones, genetics, environment. At the Hurley Bariatric Center, we offer several different weight loss programs to help. We have a non-surgical medical weight loss program. We offer the Orbera gastric balloon, and we also offer bariatric and metabolic surgery. Our non-surgical medical weight loss program is based on the 4 pillars of weight management per the Obesity Medicine Association. That means that we're including nutrition, physical activity, behavior, and medication if needed. It's a 12-week medical weight loss program that uses meal replacements, nutritional supplements, and food. There's weekly visits with either a physician assistant, myself, a registered dietitian, a medical assistant or nurse for weigh-ins, clinical evaluations, and education. Results are going to vary, but participants could expect to lose anywhere between 30 to 60 pounds over the 12-week period. There is a program fee that is not covered by insurance, and there's also weekly out-of-pocket costs for nutritional supplements that are not covered by insurance. Next, we have the Orbera gastric balloon. This is a silicone balloon that is placed in the stomach to promote a feeling of fullness when eating smaller portions of food. The balloon is designed to stay there for 6 months, after which it's removed. There's an additional 6 months of nutrition counseling to help make diet and lifestyle changes stick. There's no incisions. The balloon is placed orally through the esophagus, and participants can expect to lose up to 10% of their total body weight. Currently, the balloon is not covered by insurance. And lastly, we have bariatric and metabolic surgery. This involves removing part of the stomach and/or having the part of the intestines rerouted. Bariatric surgery is covered by most insurances, and it actually helps with diabetes in more ways than just weight loss. There's hormonal changes that occur in the gut when someone has a gastric bypass procedure or a sleeve gastrectomy. Those hormonal changes have been shown to bring about resolution of type 2 diabetes in 63% of individuals studied. Here at the Hurley Bariatric Center, our statistics are really no different. About 62.5% of our patients that do have type 2 diabetes no longer require treatment for diabetes at 1 year. I hope this information has been helpful. If you're interested to learn more about any of the programs I've described, you can contact us at the Hurley Bariatric Center at 810-262-2330 or on the web at hurleymc.com. Just search bariatrics.
And Jennifer, before we jump into some of these questions on the weight loss, we did get a question on YouTube about pre-diabetes, and someone's wondering if they have pre-diabetes, should they be testing their blood sugar?
Generally, it's not necessary for prediabetes, and oftentimes the materials aren't covered by insurance if someone has a diagnosis of prediabetes. But if you're concerned, I would definitely encourage someone to talk to their doctor.
How fast will you see a drop in your diabetes if you are taking these steps? If you're watching your weight, if you're exercising, you start these life changes?
Well, just by improving diet, eating more consistent carbohydrates, people can see improvements in their blood sugar levels within a few days. I mean, it can be pretty quick. I've had patients see improvements in their daily blood sugar testing after 1 or 2 days of just implementing what we would call consistent carbohydrate intake. Otherwise, for longer lasting, better overall glycemic control, that weight loss really is what you're looking at, to make that difference in terms of diet and lifestyle. And it isn't much. Some studies have shown even just losing 2% of your total body weight, which if someone weighs 200 pounds, that's just about 4 pounds or so, can start seeing a little more improvement on a day-to-day basis in blood sugar.
Someone is asking about the supplements and how much they cost, but before you answer that, I just, thinking about their question and someone who's gone through the medical weight loss program, you spend so much money when you're overweight anyways on fast food, on, countless snacks, on all the stuff. So supplements really, it's kind of a trade-off for what you're already spending, right?
Completely true. And I hear that often from patients. So with the medical weight loss program, there is a program fee, and that does cover the first 10 days of the supplements needed for the program. For the remainder of that second week, it's really a 2-week supplement only program that starts out with anyway. It's about $11 a day for the remainder half week. After that, it's anywhere between $5 and $6 a day on average, depending on the particular product someone chooses to buy.
Do you need to be on medications on these plans?
No, no. In fact, most of the time medications aren't necessary. They're available. We do use them if needed. It's really just an individual, case by case basis.
And it looks like this might be the last question, but how long does it take for someone to get an appointment? If they're going to take that jump and they're ready and they, call.
Sure. Well, it depends on what they're looking for. We do offer the 3 different programs, which is bariatric surgery, the non-surgical medical weight loss program, and the balloon. If someone's interested in bariatric surgery, we can certainly have appointments, I know, probably just about a month out. With the balloon, if someone's interested in that, I think appointments also are probably within a month. For the non-surgical medical weight loss program, I know there's a wait list, so it might take a couple of months to get into that.
The best thing to do might be to either, call the bariatric center or to call the diabetes center if you have questions, they can answer more.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Oh, thank you, Jen. Thank you everyone for joining us. Hope